Hey, thanks for joining us in another episode of Nobody Special. At this point, we've met several ordinary people that got their story in the Bible simply because they said yes to Jesus. We've talked about taking bold steps, next steps, trust. We've talked about what it takes to believe enough to obey God's call and command. As we look into some folks in this lesson, think about what it takes for someone to be convinced that Jesus is the Messiah, the Christ, the Son of God. And what's the proper reaction once one is convinced? Can we really contain our excitement? Envision this New Testament scene in the city of Jericho in Luke 19, where people were piled up all over the streets as Jesus was passing through Jericho. The crowd was so thick that Zacchaeus had to climb up into a tree to just catch a glimpse of the, by now, famous teacher, Jesus of Nazareth. Now, understand, Jesus was just passing through, for he was headed to Jerusalem, specifically to the cross, to take care of the business of saving the world. But Jesus pauses and he looks Zacchaeus' way and tells him that he is going to his house. Well, once again, Jesus goes out of his way to reach someone that everyone else had given up on. I suppose everyone that has ever encountered Jesus could feel this way. In a sense, who, me? You talking to me? I mean, I'm quickly reminded of one of my favorite Jesus encounters in the Bible, found in John chapter 4. Verse 7, a woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink," for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock." Verse 13, and Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water, welling up to eternal life." And the woman, she said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water." Jesus just happened to be passing through Samaria when he just happened to meet this woman at noontime, collecting water at Jacob's well. I think most folks know there are no such things as chance encounters with God. Again, reflecting on the story of Zacchaeus, you can't help to think or realize or know that Jesus meant to meet Zacchaeus on that street on that day. In John chapter 4, we read how Jesus went through Samaria to meet Photina. Yeah, we're just going to go ahead and go out there and give her that name, okay? Normally, Jews went around Samaria in their travels between Judea and Galilee because Jews and Samaritans could not stand one another. However, Jesus passing through there was no mistake. If you're a follower of Jesus, you likely remember where you first met. And by the way, you know that it was him that initiated the meeting. It turns out that Zacchaeus wasn't such a pillar of the community. Well, neither was the woman at the well. Jesus drills down into her personal life. In verse 16 we read, Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, You're right in saying I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." Oh, snap. Jesus gets her telling the truth by exposing to her that he knows the truth about her messy life situation. Isn't it great that we don't have to fake who we are before God? He already knows about the mess that we're in, and he still wants to talk with us. Thank God Jesus will come to us in our brokenness and messiness. He did so with these 2, and hey, he had already handpicked as part of the 12 some rough, gruff fisherman, a tax collector, a zealot, and a bunch of other nobody specials as his recruits to change the whole world. The woman at the well engaged in lively conversation with Jesus, and they went back and forth, and as the discussion became a debate about spiritual things, we've got to give credit. To her credit, the woman was open to the truth. She was curious about spiritual things. And read in verse 19. The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you're a prophet. Our fathers were worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." A lot of folks don't even want to talk about spiritual things. And a lot of people sure don't want to talk about Jesus. She was visibly ashamed of her sin. That's why that's why she went to fetch water at high noon when no other women were out there to chastise her for her lifestyle. She knew right from wrong. Like most people, she was very aware of her sin, and she found that honesty and confession is essential for wholeness. While she didn't confirm or deny Jesus' statement that she had been married 5 times and she was shacking, she certainly gave herself away with, "Sir, I perceive that you're a prophet." How in the world did this guy that she had just met know her whole life story? This made her totally drop her guard, for Jesus could see right through her. Zacchaeus, Nicodemus, this woman, God sees right through all of us. Many today are putting up barriers to belief and Jesus sees right through them. Upon meeting Jesus in this open air, all barriers removed talk, she was convicted of her own sin. But more than that, she was convinced of who Jesus was. As we read in verse 25, the woman said to him, "I know that the Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. When he comes, he'll tell us all things." And Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you am he." She was convinced in this short talk he knew everything about her and that they had just met. He spoke the truth to her in love and respect. He told her the way to be right with God, and he did something with her that he didn't do with any of the Jews back in Jerusalem, the chief, the priests, the scribes, Pharisees, that bunch. He told her that he was the Messiah. Like Peter falling before Jesus in worship, she had a natural reaction to the supernatural Jesus. She took off. Her enthusiasm for her newfound Messiah was uncontainable. She had to tell somebody. And when the disciples showed back up, the woman left her water jar and ran joyously back to town to tell them. She said in verse 29, "Come see a man who told me all that I ever did. Can this be the Christ?" They went out of the town and were coming to him. She was convinced, but unlike many today, she was overwhelmed to the point she had to go share it with others. She heard enough in this short conversation to believe and take action, to put feet to faith. And here's a conclusion that I have come to for many folks, that sadly they don't believe because they don't want to believe. They have certainly heard enough to believe. The Bible is available for reading. Anybody can read it. The answers to eternal life they're in black and white, right here. The woman was tired and done. This life was not cutting it. Life was a daily grind. She knew something was missing, and she just met what was missing. It was a who. And once she met Jesus, she needed no more convincing. She was coming clean, and she was going to tell everybody about him. Her newfound joy was uncontainable.